Hi, I'm Rosie, and welcome to another episode on Irish literature. Before we get started with this one, let's start off by the way you pronounce Yeats's name. Think great. Great Yeats. Great! Now let's go over some of the more important things. Yeats saw himself as the last romantic poet, romantic in the Victorian sense. Romantic poets usually died young, and so Yeats expected to die young. So he wrote his autobiography pretty early, and then lived another 40 years. He was a little surprised, and I think a little disappointed. Yeats is best known for his poetry, but he is also a well-renowned playwright. That's what we're going to talk about today, because his plays were and continue to be influential. Yeats's writing style went through 3 distinct stages, and he wrote a lot. When he was younger, he copied the style of the Romantic poets, focusing more on fairy tales and mythology. This can be epitomized in his poem Cathleen Ni Houlihan. Then, later, he developed a more modernist style, which can be seen in his play At the Hawk's Well. At the end of his life, he started writing some more regretful and nostalgic pieces, like his play Purgatory. To understand Yeats and his literature, it's important to know the context. So I'm going to talk about 3 things that were very important to Yeats: the Abbey Theatre, the Irish Literary Revival, and Home Rule. The Abbey Theatre was very important to Irish culture and literature, and it was very popular. It put on nationalist plays, works that encouraged the Irish people to remain Irish and to fight against the English occupation of Ireland. Yeats's Cathleen Ni Houlihan and Lady Gregory's Spreading the News were played on opening night of the Abbey Theatre. The Irish Literary Revival was a flourishing of Irish literature, which included Yeats and Lady Gregory. Home Rule for Ireland was the push for Ireland to have its own government and to not be ruled over by England, who they kind of hated. Now I'm going to touch on Yeats's 3 plays that epitomize the 3 stages of his writing. Cathleen Ni Houlihan is a nationalist play about Ireland. It clearly expresses the desire to break free of England's shackles. It became a battle cry for Ireland. The old woman, Cathleen Ni Houlihan, is the mythological embodiment of Ireland, and the audience of the time would have recognized that right away. In the play, she says she doesn't have a home because strangers have taken it from her, and she needs help getting it back. The point of this play is priorities. The young man cannot have a family and fight for Ireland. He has to choose one. It is a call to the young men at the time, reminding them that Cathleen Ni Houlihan doesn't have a home, and it is up to them. They need to sacrifice to get it back for her. It is very simple, with an easy to understand message, but that is what the people wanted, and it is what Yeats believed. In Yeats's other work, At the Hawk's Well, it has a very different feel to it. It gets more complicated. This work, like most other modernist literature, is much more abstract. Before I get into that, there is just one thing I have to say. There are a lot of symbolic things in this play. It's one of those works of literature where I know it's significant, but I don't know why or what it means. That is common with modernist literature, and especially with this play. It's hard to understand, so don't beat yourself up if you don't get it. This play centers around a magic well that is protected by a female hawk-like figure, and then there are these 2 men who are trying to drink from the well. One of the men is old, he's been there for years trying to drink from this well, and the new one is young. This is Cathleen. He is a mythological figure from Irish history. Behind them there are these 3 musicians who sing and play instruments throughout the play. An interesting thing to know is that Yeats was enamored with Noe theater, a Japanese style of theater, and he copied some of the characteristics of it, like the musicians in the background, the masks, and the bare set. Every single one of the characters in At the Hawk's Well wears a mask. Maybe they're wearing masks because it's not about the person or humanity, but about what they're saying and doing. Maybe it adds another layer to the marionette idea, that they're not quite human. As for the marionette idea, if you look at the stage direction, it could be suggesting the idea that we are not in control of our own fate and something is controlling us. The 3rd stage in Yeats's writing career was his nostalgic phase. At the end of his life, you can really see him mourning. This can be seen in his play Purgatory. The play is dark and ghostly, with silhouettes and only 2 actors on stage. It tells the story of a sad family history, and this father is telling his son in the hopes that it will not repeat itself. The father and son are watching this family history play out in the silhouette of this burnt house window. Because the father's mother died in childbirth, he wants to free her soul from purgatory. So when he sees a silhouette in the window that he believes to be her, he kills his son in the hopes that it will release her. However, it appears to be in vain as the grim cycle of violence and death begins again. The only real set on stage other than the burnt out house is the tree. It is another thing that was alive but is now dead. It was struck by lightning, destroyed just as his father had burnt down his house. The father tells his son to study that tree, as if it could answer all of life's questions. The lightning strike can be seen as another representation of the characters being torn from the sight of God and placed in purgatory. That is an overview of 3 works of literature, each from a period of Yeats's writing career. As I already mentioned, Yeats is also an established poet, so I encourage you to go check out some of his poetry and see the connections between his stages of writing in that as well. Until next time, I'm Rosie, and this is Irish Literature.